They've emailed out to you on Friday, and there's copies of it on your desk tonight.
Motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by John to approve the agenda with the addition. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is invocation from Our Savior's Lutheran Church. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. In the name of the only true and living God, God the Father who created all things, God the only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, God the Holy Spirit, the author and giver of life. Merciful Father in heaven, from you comes all rule and authority over the nations of the world, for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do well. Graciously regard your servants, those who make, administer, and judge the laws of our land, and look with mercy on the rulers of the earth. Grant that all who receive the sword as your servants may bear it according to your command. Enlighten and defend them. Grant them wisdom and understanding, that under their peaceable governance your people may be guarded and directed in righteousness, quietness, and unity. Protect and prolong the lives, that we with them may show forth the praise of your name. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything?
Well, I could read the Parks Department thing now.
Yes,
No.
that would be fine.
Sure. So Dolph Moon asked me to read a list of organizations and individuals that have helped the Parks Department in the past year. So it's quite a few things, so just buckle up. Let's see, the Hutchinson Downtown Association assisted with some spring plantings in all the containers on Main Street and Library Square. The Hutchinson Area Mountain Bike Association, and specifically Paul Arndt, helped rebuild the terrain park down in Tartan Park. The Little Crow Disc Golf Club, and specifically Shane Cruz, just for continuous efforts in supporting the course in South Park and putting up some new pads for the tee boxes. Let's see, KW Realty helped with some mulching, some trees, and general cleanup at Masonic West River Park. The Friends of the Loose Line picked up litter, and they supported the porta potty funding along the Loose Line Trail system, and those were outside of Hutchinson. The local Girl Scouts helped with the beautification of Girl Scout Park with weeding and plantings. Maplewood Academy had 2 service days. They helped at the sanctuary with the new trail material added and mulching, and assisted with spreading of safety mulch at the new Roberts Playground and cutting down some invasive plants that were out at Roberts Park. New Century Academy, and specifically Brittany Buckstall, helped with an Earth Day event, and with all of their schools participating 150 total with students and staff, and some storm and drain marking, and some litter cleanup in the parks and trails. ISD 423's landscaping class helped with the Depot Rain Garden cleanup and some cleanup around the middle school and West Elementary, and helped with some installations and some new plantings at the middle school. And the Hutchinson Leadership Institute, they had 3 different groups. They did a work day at McLeod Veterans Park, some work at the dog park, and some blessing boxes to go into parks to help support those that need assistance. And then another project at Library Square. ISD 423 REACH class assisted with some of those leadership projects, specifically at McLeod County Veterans Park. So pretty extensive list, and it shows there's a lot of buy-in when it comes to helping with the park system. So thank you to all those groups, and I know the Parks Department really appreciates it.
That's great.
That's all I have. So.
Oh, why don't you, as long as you're speaking, why don't you just touch on the water carnival?
Sure. We had a great water carnival. It was a little bit of a soggy water carnival, but
Well, as Mary says, it's water carnival.
yeah.
Water carnival.
But all the events went off. It's just a lot of them got moved around. Nothing had to get canceled, and we even got the parade in. Like it was supposed to be kind of a washout, but it went out fine. It was a little warm, but overall, I think everybody had a great, safe festival. I didn't hear of any major issues, so thanks for everybody that volunteered for that and helped, and we'll have another one next year, it sounds like, so.
Did you
Alrighty.
break any ribs this year?
I did not. I didn't play foosball this year, which was a safer deal for me, and I just reffed it, and we had no issues injury-wise at foosball this year, so that was
Good.
an improvement over last year, so.
Does anybody have anything else? All right, we have a couple of resolutions. We have resolution number 14908, a resolution accepting $500 cash donation from the Hutchinson Area Community Foundation for Founders Pathway Landscaping. Can we do both of those, Matt,
We're
or?
going to do one at a time. just
Okay.
We got guests for the second one.
Yeah.
so.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion by Chad, second by John to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have resolution number 14909, a resolution accepting $54,000 cash donation from the Hutchinson Elks Lodge for the Hutchinson Elks Inclusive Park. We have guests. Please come forward and introduce yourselves, please.
Okay. I'm Tammy Lane from Hutchinson. George Lane, Paul Ackland.
See the Paul's between them.
Yeah, we donated the 54,000. We're looking to get the approval of the council to order the equipment. I'm going to give you each I call it a map of the park to show you what,
Thanks, Tammy.
where the pieces are going to be going.
You can knock Chad over. Thanks.
Would you like one too? Yeah. These guys are more my moral support, or if there's questions I can't answer, they're here for me.
Boy, are you in trouble.
All right. So what we've got here, this is the map that I've given them. I've identified where all the different pieces are going to be put. So one of them, or what's in black on the top there is where the Zip Cruise is currently, where the Sway Fun and that bunch is. I've got the Cozy Dome, the roller table, Omni Spinners, so on and so forth, everything identified there. When I got sent this map, obviously you can't see what is what. So I just want to give you an example of what things are going to look like when we order these pieces. So this is the Weesaw. So needless to say, you can have the kids on the one side. If you've got a child that is wheelchair bound, you can transfer them into one of the buckets or into the centerpiece just to hang on. And the Weesaw will be in the middle there. Okay. The Omni Spin, anybody can go into that. So that's the idea of the inclusive park. We want these kids to sit inside there. It wobbles, it moves, it goes. It shows them how movement feels other than just standing, walking as a regular child or somebody that's in the wheelchair. And once again, the Omni Spin will go right here. The new piece that everybody's going to be excited about is called the Friendship Swing. This will be where a parent, a child, and another child can swing, and they'll swing together so that they can all enjoy it at the same time. The idea behind it is, like I said, if you've got somebody that is wheelchair bound, we can put them into the piece here mom or parent or grandparent can sit on the same side and they can both swing. And that's, with this inclusive park, that's what we want to do. We want to come and find certain pieces that will inspire them to come, such as what we've done in the past with the zip cruise. I mean, we've had so many kids. Yeah, we had one time where too many teenagers got on it and got a little bit broken, but we got the new piece and we've got it repaired. And then one last piece I'm going to show you is the Cozy Dome, which is a very tiny picture, but it's actually a really nice big piece, and they climb inside and outside. So we are asking permission from the city to take the $54,000 that we've currently donated and be able to purchase the equipment as soon as possible. The reason I say as soon as possible, I've got a couple of grants out there that are due by the end of July that I have to show proof that we've purchased the equipment, not so much to install the equipment. I've got 2 grants for sure that are due by then. As long as the equipment is on its way and I can show an invoice that it's da-da-da-da-da here, I can move forward with those and possibly have, if we need more of those grants, we can.
Tammy, just, I guess, first address that, the request that came to us from staff, will we accept the donation?
Yes.
So to order anything would have to be at our next council meeting. So July 10th is what it's
Okay.
scheduled, so we need any information from our staff.
My concern on that, and I understand it, my concern on that is President Trump has decided on the tariff charges. So we're going to be ending up paying an extra 3% on that.
We have a special council meeting scheduled for the 2nd.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally can't be here, but I'll get some people here so we can do that. And then I'm proud to say, for us as Hutchinson Elks members, with the $54,000 that was donated and we're talking about tonight, in 18 months, we have donated $140,857 so far in 18 months. Yay us.
That is awesome.
Yay us.
We
Your
need to
group deserves a hand for that.
It's a lot of money in a short period of time. But that's thanks to the Elks, that's thanks to the donations that have come in from the DAB and so on and so forth, the grant money that we've applied for. So thank you to the city of Hutch for allowing us to do this and having the Hutch Elks Park per name be #1 in the city for reservations. And thanks to you guys approving the fact that we can get the parking lot and the trail to it. So thank you very much.
Where does the grant money come from?
The grant money from our national organization, they've donated $10,000 already. Well, actually, it's more than, it's closer to $15,000. I've got $7,000, we got $7,000 from Wells Fargo. We've gotten, I don't know, there's just a list that every time I see something new and different, gotta go for it. They might say no, but you mean United Way is part of that, Hutchinson Health Foundation, you know, we got a lot of local ones too. But, you know, when you love something and you show your passion, they'll just jump on the train and ride with.
Well, grant writing is somewhat of an art, so I applaud
Yes.
you on.
Well, thank you.
Matt,
Happens when you like to talk.
does the council really have to approve purchasing? I mean, if we're accepting the dollars now, oh, it's over 50,000, yeah.
Yeah, it's 54.
Are they ordered from all the same place?
Yep.
Oh,
All right, so, yeah, July 2nd.
So July 2nd?
We can do, yeah, the earliest we can do, we have July, we do have a special meeting on
Yep.
July 2nd. So,
Same time?
No.
No, morning.
Okay.
Nobody
I'll
has,
look towards the guy over here in the white.
nobody really has to be here for that if it's an issue.
Oh.
We, Matt, right?
That's good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question's gonna be, I mean, staff will be able to communicate to you what's gonna be recommended for council approval,
Okay,
so.
okay. And I know there's additional monies that are going to be needed for the installation, and we will have that. Yep. Yep, guaranteed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
make
Next,
a motion to approve it.
yep, I'm
I'll
sorry.
second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve accepting the 54,000 from the Elks. Any other discussion?
Big
All in
thanks.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is citizens addressing the council. If you have anything to address the council, please come forward and state your name and address. If it's on invocation, I am not going to take any public comment on that tonight. All right, approval of minutes. We have regular meeting minutes of June 12th, 2018, and workshop of June 12th, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve those.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Steve to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is consent agenda. This will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is consideration for approval of letter of support for the Minnesota Governor's pheasant hunting opener. B is consideration for approval of letter of support for the U.S. Highway 212 built transportation discretionary grant application. C is consideration for approval of issuing short-term gambling license to Volter 414 on November 20th, 2018 at VFW Post 906. D is consideration for approval of issuing short-term gambling license to the Hutchinson Fire Department Relief Association on September 8th, 2018 at the Hutchinson Fire Department. E is consideration for approval of improvement projects change orders. Under there, we have change order number 1, Letty number 2, project number 18-2, 2nd Avenue Southeast Bridge Replacement. And change order number 1, Letty number 6, project number 18-06, 2018 seal coat, street seal coating. F is consideration for approval of items for Century Avenue Southeast Reconstruction Project, Letty number 1, project number 18-1. And under there, we have resolution number 14910, resolution declaring costs to be assessed and ordering preparations of proposed assessments. And resolution number 14911, resolution for hearing on proposed assessment. G is consideration for approval of items for the 2018 Pavement Management Program project, letting number 4, project number 18-4. Under there, we have resolution number 14912, resolution declaring costs to be assessed and ordering preparation of proposed assessments. And resolution number 14913, resolution for hearing on proposed assessments. And H is claims and appropriation contract payments. Is there anything anybody wants pulled off?
I'd like to pull off A just to talk about it a little bit more,
All right.
if I'm in support of it or not.
G also.
G.
And so the change order, there's a revised one here. Is that right?
All right, motion to,
Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, wrong. Never mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Some change language.
E, F, and G.
Yep.
All right. Motion to approve the
I'll approve the
balance.
couple that are left.
I'll second that.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the balance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. John?
So I just wanted to make people a little aware that we're applying for sponsorship of the Governor's Pheasant Opener in 2019. And we've got a resolution through the Chamber of Commerce to do it. It's going to require some community support. And there's a letter of intent in here that notes that if you are willing to make a monetary donation and an in-kind donation, if you happen to have dogs that you could help people that are here hunt with, that's available. And My only question on that, I think this is tax deductible if you make a donation through a business. I'm guessing it's probably tax deductible.
Yeah.
Or it could fall under advertising, so, I know I plan on donating dogs and money.
Yep, and just so the public's aware, and obviously the council, we're applying. Most likely, there'll be a couple other cities that apply. Part of that application, and part of the reason for the letter is they want to see things like letters of support from community members and the community as a whole, and so that's part of what this letter is doing. But if we know in advance the amount of people that are going to be willing to help out, that obviously ends up being a benefit in the application. We're working with the chamber. The chamber is the one who is applying, just so everyone's fully aware of that. But yeah, we're working with them to help with this application.
And I got to talk to Dean Erdahl last night at Music in the Park, and he had gotten the same letter from the chamber, so
Yeah,
he
pulled
was
from
gonna.
our local representatives, they are planning on doing the letter of support as well.
So, with that, I would, I don't know if I should make a motion to, I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. Motion by John, second by myself for letter of support for the governor's opener. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Steve or Kent?
I think I can address it, yeah, it's just a technicality in what we're calling the one document, with respect to letting number 2 project, 18-02 Second Avenue Southeast Bridge replacement, and what's in front of you is a revised document. Instead of calling this a change order, we needed to call it a work order per MnDOT due to the funding source involved. So just a technicality that we weren't aware of when we produced the original document. So otherwise, the information's the same, simply the title of it.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to approve the change orders. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next one.
Yep.
With respect to item F, Century Avenue, we did have the bid opening last Friday, a few days ago, and what's reflected in your packet and handed out this evening, well, or so what was handed out this evening that was revised within your packet was a resolution number 14910, which declares cost to be assessed and orders preparation of proposed assessment. So we've filled in the blanks with respect to the bid amount, and yeah, just so you know, the apparent low bidder is R&R Excavating from Hutchinson here, and we are currently working with them to get their approvals, their disadvantaged business enterprise federal aid requirement approvals through MnDOT, and hopefully we'll do that and have this ready to be awarded at the previously referenced council meeting, special meeting next Monday. So, yeah, this is simply filling in the blanks with respect to the dollar amounts on this resolution. So order the hearing.
How'd that come in versus the estimate?
A little higher, but bids were fairly closely grouped. We had 4 bids, so yeah, we were happy with the bid, and I think it's fair and responsive.
Anything else, Steve?
On that, no? Actually have 2 resolutions. So I'd make a motion to approve the revised resolution number 14910, as well as resolution 14911 that was in the packet calling for the hearing, assessment hearing.
Motion by Steve, second by John to approve the resolutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next one, levy number 4, likewise ordering the assessment hearing and potential project award for this project at your meeting on July 24th. This one's a little more complicated. We did, likewise, like I previously mentioned, we revised the resolution, in this case 14912, to reflect the apparent low bid amount. We do have an alternate bid we need to consider on this project, and we will be analyzing the overall infrastructure improvement program and having a resource allocation committee meeting this Thursday prior to your special meeting next Monday on the Century Avenue front, and obviously prior to the July 24th meeting, when both Century and this levy number 4 pavement management program project will be considered by council for award. But what we've revised here is, again, the resolution amounts to reflect the apparent low bid. Just to mention, William Mueller and Sons out of Hamburg, who we've done a lot of work with over the years, is the apparent low bidder. So bid was pretty close to estimate, hair high again, but I think that's due to the time of year and some uncertainties with fuel and oil costs right now. You know, they've hedged back down a little bit here in recent week or so, but they've definitely been up early this summer in comparison to the last year or so. The other thing we revised, if you flip to the next, second, third, and fourth pages of the handout in front of you after the resolution, is the assessment roll. And after reviewing the bids, after getting some input from Councilmember Cook with respect to some of the reasoning, the thoughts behind the assessment rates, took a step back and did some research on how we've assessed full reconstruction projects over the last few years. And the definition of full reconstruction projects isn't the fact that it involves sewer and water mains. It's the fact that we're completely replacing the road bed with new sand, new gravel, all new curb and gutter, and obviously blacktop, which is involved in basically any project, any construction approach, but it's a completely new road. And partial reconstruction projects, which is the rate we've been applying in recent years, and we do different prorations and there's different circumstances, but that's usually been our basis to start to develop an assessment rate, is our partial reconstruction rate that's established within the city fee schedule. That's been applied to School and Roberts. To some degree, School and Roberts was even a step beyond that, where it was a full reconstruction of the roadway. We actually hedged that down to a mill and overlay approach initially, and then prorated accordingly. We've also applied that to Second Avenue Southeast out here a few years back. Both the pavement management programs that involve full reconstructions in 2016 and 2015. The streets of note in those projects were Golf Course Road, Northwest, full reconstruction, and Linden, primarily in the 2016 pavement management project, and some other streets in that area, Madison, Milwaukee. So what we did is we took a look back. We initially had proposed the full reconstruction rate, which prorated down based on street width was $72 a front foot. We took our partial reconstruction rate, prorated that down based on width. It arrives at that $58.50. That's in the far right-hand column, I guess, cell there. If you look up towards the upper right-hand side of the sheet there, it says street costs per front foot, $58.50. That's been a rate that's been utilized quite a bit over the last few years on some of those projects I just mentioned. It's a typical street width that's involved 36 feet. So you take 36 over 40, that's 90%. times $65 a front foot gives you that $58.50. So what I propose is utilizing this rate at this point in time for this project. Obviously, this would be, good news to a property owner, when they receive their assessment hearing notice, it's going to reflect this rate in comparison to the previous $72 a front foot rate. If there's any questions, I know that's a pretty significant change, but once we did some research, I think it's in the city's best interest for consistency purposes, especially when we start to compare back to the rates we applied to projects in the fairly recent years.
So when would we use the full reconstruction then?
That's a good question. And in full disclosure, we've used that in the past, when we've had different city economic conditions, back and shortly after the recession, that rate was utilized to help offset the utility costs on projects, because we were protecting the reserve funds of our water and wastewater funds at that point in time. And that was a conscious decision because we were using bonding dollars to fund those improvements, those water, wastewater improvements at that point in time. So to meet state statute, you need that 20% offset, that 20% match, basically,
Sure.
to meet statutes. So we were utilizing that full reconstruction rate on projects on a few projects that involved full water and sanitary sewer main replacements. Looking forward, we have, our special assessment policy is written, with some flexibility from the city's standpoint. We have discretion in there. We can use our judgment, to change our rates. We set our rates. We can change our rates, any given year. We can change our rates at any point in time in the project process per council's approval. Utilization of the full reconstruction rate, unless we really need to generate assessment revenues to match our bonding target, that's really the only reason I could see us utilizing that at this point in time. And really that would be driven by construction costs. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to arrive at a rate that we can justify the benefit, to the property owner, that they're getting what they're paying for. So that somewhat artificially keeps the rates down a bit, so we don't have to deal with the benefit question unless absolutely necessary.
And our recovery rate here is still above that 20% minimum.
Yes, yeah, with this change on the assessment arrives at about a $40,000 decrease.
Yeah.
So we're going from about 330-some thousand down to 285. So yeah, we're capturing more than enough assessments this year to match our bonding target to satisfy that 20% parameter.
Like just being consistent in how we're approaching it, that I feel is important, so that's why I kind of asked one of the questions earlier, that Ken started looking at things. So the rest that 40,000 would be made up through bonding or through the water sewer?
In essence,
Not
it would
sure.
be made up through bonding, albeit we do have some flexibility once we look at the program as a whole. We're gonna situate ourselves to try to meet that $1.9 million bonding target. So that might necessitate utilizing more state aid dollars on the Century Avenue project front. So, yeah, before our Thursday resource allocation committee meeting, I need to plug all the new numbers into the worksheet and see how things are taking shape. But I don't think it's gonna be any severe hardship by any means.
Anything else, Steve?
No, just saw the revised and else, I'll make a motion to approve.
That's for 1912 and 41.
Yeah, there's two resolutions. Again, it's one the revised, 14912, and then calling for the hearing resolution. What's that?
1913.
Yeah, 14913, so motion to approve both.
Motion by Steve, second by John to approve both resolutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We do have a public hearing. Adoption of updated business subsidy criteria.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to turn this over to my intern, Megan Donahue, and she'll lead us through this presentation.
People are wondering about just the council.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to recommend a update to the business subsidy policy. A business subsidy policy is a benefit given to a business or qualified recipient by the state or local government. The benefit can come in many forms, including grants, loans, property, or infrastructure. The purpose of the business subsidy is to enhance economic diversity in the city, create high-quality job growth, provide for job retention, stabilize the community, and increase tax base. The state of Minnesota requires cities that provide business assistance to adopt a business subsidy policy. Hutchinson adopted its first business subsidy policy in 2003 and has periodically updated it as needed. With each update, we must hold a public hearing. Anytime the city of Hutchinson provides a business subsidy to a qualified business or recipient, that business is subject to the wage levels, job creation, and other criteria set forth in this policy and specified in the business subsidy agreement made with the city. The city is allowed to set job creation and wage goals higher than what the policy calls for if needed. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services currently has the poverty guidelines set at $25,100 for a family of four, which is about $12.07 an hour. The updates that we're recommending are removing the Job Z language. This program has now expired and is no longer available. We want to simplify the base wage language so that it adjusts yearly as the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services updates their poverty guidelines. And then we want to change the ratio of jobs created per amount of assistance provided to one job per 100,000. That increases our flexibility with the different people that come to us. And again, the city can always set higher wage and job creation as needed. So since 2003, we've had 3 of these business subsidies that we partook in, and these are the goals, so much higher than we expected. Warrior Manufacturing, their goal was to create 10 jobs at $10.23 an hour, and they actually came up with 80 jobs at $21.14 an hour, which brought that assistance down to $2,500. New Crane Manufacturing, their goal was 20 jobs at $11.66 an hour, and they actually came up with 33 jobs at $20.77 an hour, so $15,152 per job. And Customer Relation, their goal was 100 jobs at from $9 to $10.99 an hour, and they came up with 24 full-time jobs and 275 part-time jobs. Any questions?
So that there's some revisions
Yeah, so we passed out, there was a little bit of word changes, and I passed that out. It should be up there for you. Nothing major that was changed beforehand, but just a little bit of word changes.
So if we lend money, or if we, I guess, grant money to a business, we've got a subsidy policy, and there's limits, like if we give a business more than $25,000 or loan them more than $75,000, we've got to have a public hearing related to that, I believe.
Limit is 150,000.
It's 150. So
yes.
has that been raised recently, do you know, or? Couple years
Yeah,
back?
the last time we updated the policy was 2009, so it would have been updated probably in 2009.
Okay.
Anything else? Open it up for public comment.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Mary to close the public hearing. All in favor?
All right?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Consideration,
Hearing,
Oh,
still actually
oh,
have
I'm
to
sorry.
take action. on
Yeah,
State policy.
Yep.
so.
motion to.
I'll make a
approve.
motion to approve.
I'll second.
Just had a
Oh.
question though for Miles.
Yeah,
In the past, you've had like our return, you know, with the economic development. Do you have a number, kind of, I know it's off the top of your head, but you've had it some other times.
Just our return on investment?
Yeah,
Oh, I haven't really had an opportunity to sit down and
Update.
calculate that. It's a sizable number, I can say that, but,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, for every $1 we put in, it's many dollars that the community has benefited, but I don't
Yeah.
have that number handy.
okay. No, I think at some other times it's been 25 or even more dollars. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely, yep.
Yeah. That's all.
motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor by Steve and a second by
By
Mary.
Mary.
So,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration of comments and input on stormwater pollution prevention plan for the city of Hutchinson. Mr. Paulson?
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Each year, if you recall, we provide an annual update on our MS4 stormwater program, MS4 being our municipal separate storm sewer system. We have acronyms in the world that I live in, so what I'll do is I'll just walk you through our program. Also included in the packet for this evening was our annual report for 2017. That's something we'll plan on submitting later this week. That's due at the end of June. So provide this update. Please feel free to jump in if you have any questions as I go through it. Components of our program include public education and outreach. That includes a number of different things from a page in our Park and Rec Community Ed Stormwater brochure. We include that multiple times throughout the year, including items related to illicit discharges, rain barrels, different types of volunteer events that exist out there. Also include information on our stormwater webpage. The link is found there. Stormwater brochures that we include in our utility billings. Stormwater BMP, or best management practice details distributed to developers and builders when they come in and obtain a permit. An annual public meeting that we're here tonight for. Another item we always like to touch on too is the number of rain barrels we sold. So in the spring of this year, we sold 57 rain barrels. It's still a popular program. It's incredible that we started selling 120 of them 7-8 years ago. We're down to 57, but there's some communities that discontinued selling them because the demand has just died off that much. So Hutchinson continues to promote that, and it continues to be a successful program.
So, John, over the years, how many total rain barrels have been sold?
I've been tracking that number, and I believe it's right around 400 rain barrels, so it's pretty significant. I'd be hard pressed to hardly drive down a street and not see one. Just if you open your eyes and look around town as you drive around, you'll see one on the corner of houses here and there. They're all over the place. So it's incredible how many of them that are out there. doesn't hurt that I have a couple of them myself, so.
And some people have made their own, I've seen.
Absolutely, yeah, it's inspired that as well, people that have done their own, or I've seen people that have actually taken blue barrels, typical plastic 55-gallon barrels, and they've painted them, where they put artwork on them as well, so it's another creative touch, you know. People that don't just want a barrel in their yard, they want it to actually look artistic as well, so.
So we have 4,900 water meters in town, so approximately 10% of the structures have rain barrels, is that?
Yeah, it's funny, I don't know exactly how many have multiple, but I know there are quite a few that have more than one, so, I'm sure it's in,
6,200 housing units, so, but that includes apartments, so.
but I'm sure there's, like I said, a number of them that have 3, 4 of them as well, so. We also include as part of our public education and outreach program, a storm drain marking program. Typically, that's entities, one was referenced tonight was New Century Academy. They help every year with a storm drain marking program. That's actually, they have enough students and enough volunteers as part of that program that we basically cover the entire city over the course of a 4 or 5 year period. That's every single catch basin. So that's a huge number of catch basins that these students are visiting on an annual basis. So it's a great opportunity for them to get out in the community, to be visible to within the community as well, and to also do a great thing and learn while they're doing it. Also, as a Crow River cleanup, something the city's assisted the Crow River Organization of Water for many years as part of our public education outreach program. Multiple volunteer trash pickup events. Another one I was identified is working with the high school and the landscaping program. They assist with cleaning out the rain garden. Working with partnerships like that is really critical. It's important for the students to get a hands-on experience, and it's also great for the city too in the fact that we get some low-cost labor to help get some of these things done that otherwise we'd be paying staff to do. Multiple volunteer trash pickup events, as I noted, Arbor Day events at the elementary schools, and then signage and educational displays. If you've seen a few of those around town at either the rain gardens or down by the dam, there's also one there. And we look for opportunities where we can do those in different places. And sometimes it's as simple as just saying this is a native buffer area or native prairie. Those things can go a long ways. At least it makes people think about why does this look different and how does it function different. Hopefully it incentivizes them to do some research on their own. Another key component of our program is illicit discharge detection and elimination. Basically anything you don't want to drink or swim in, trying to keep that out of the system from getting into the rivers and public waters. A big part of that is also mapping our system so we know where things go, and then it helps us identify priorities as far as doing maintenance on that. So our system's not contributing to problems on its own. It's part of our mapping system. Inventory system. It includes 110 ponds, of which 53 of them are city-owned, operated, or managed ponds. 3,800 catch basins, as I said. Storm drain markers as an example. That's roughly 1,000 catch basins those kids will visit in a day, and basically in an afternoon for that many, a couple groups of students to hit that many catch basins. It's pretty amazing. 1,300 stormwater manholes, 94 miles of stormwater lines, and 76 outlets from our storm sewer system. These things, if you're familiar with the annual report, those are things that specifically we have to inspect on an annual basis, 20% of those. So 20% of our outlets from our system into the river or into the lake, and then 20% of the 53 city stormwater ponds we have to inspect at a minimum. We inspect more than that typically, but I think it's worth pointing out. And we discharge to basically three different types of public waters: the South Fork of the Crow River, wetlands in the area, and then also McEwen Creek also receives some discharge. Respond to illicit discharge complaints in addition to our stormwater system map updates. When we get a phone call, we have to investigate what happened, what's the incident, where it may have originated from, cleaning it up, responding accordingly, and taking any necessary action to prevent it from reoccurring.
On those, John, at what level do you want citizens to call?
Here's a great example of one. I mean, this is something that it didn't take long before we heard about this one. I mean, I knew about this occurring before I got to work that day. They started hauling stuff out right when the sun came up in the morning, and by the time I walked into my office, I had a voicemail already saying, "Hey, they're making a heck of a mess down in Montreal. You got to get down there and do something." By noon, a lot of this was already being cleaned up, and a rock entrance was being installed. And typically, I get calls for little things, big things, everything in between. A little hydraulic leak on a garbage truck is a common one that we'll see once a year. Every couple of years, there'll be one where they'll have a pinhole in a hose, and every time they lift that arm, it'll spray a little hydraulic fluid out and things like that. People, because they can visualize it, they can see it, they can see the spots on the road. Grass clippings, neighbors that don't get along is a real common one. That's one that it's worth noting. Sometimes it's just a knock on the door, hey, don't do that no more. Don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors too, but if they're violent, stay away.
And you want people to call your office for that?
Yes, and my phone number is available on here as well. At any time, feel free to call if there's any, like I said, if you don't want to drink it or swim in it, it shouldn't be on the pavement. Feel free to let me know. And sometimes it's just a matter of just the maintenance. Like a great example is in the springtime, you'll see gravel and sand all over the community on our streets. That's just because we haven't had a chance to get there and sweep it up. If you look at it now, other than some debris and debris accumulations in our catch basins, it's actually pretty clean because we've been actively sweeping our streets. So if you see those types of things, if it's something that looks out of sorts, if it's discoloration on the street, or like I said, a pile of something that doesn't look like it belongs there, feel free to give me a call and we can definitely look into it.
That doesn't apply to manure on the highway though, right?
Yeah, it's not, if it's on a state highway, I'm calling MnDOT so they can deal with it. And they're not afraid to call us when they see it on a city street too, so it works both ways. See if it lets me go forward here. There we go. And I just included some examples. The one on the left here is an example of a hydraulic leak. And then the one on the top, really small. That was actually a phone call from a citizen that said, yeah, this doesn't look quite right. It doesn't look like water. And actually what it looked like was a little bit of, someone must have cleaned off their tools from doing some troweling of cement or grout or something. It wasn't a lot. It was just a little discoloration. You can't hardly see it standing on top of it, but there was definitely something there. Couldn't find where it originated from. And then the one on the bottom right, that one was easy. It was on a construction site. Hey, you can't just dump this stuff on the ground. So they cleaned it up. They implement best management practice to prevent that from getting washed away during the next rain event. Just some examples. As part of that, it's doing the inspections, it's monitoring our system. It's also conducting staff training. So as an example, I presented to our seasonal employees this morning, or earlier today, this afternoon. Nubile young minds, really ambitious to get out in the world and go knock things out and get things done. But sometimes it's just encouraging them to stop, think. If you see something that's out of place or doesn't look like it's right or belongs on a street, and it's just a matter of telling them if it rains, it's going to wash away. So it's a really simple message to share with people. Just use some common sense. Like I said, if it seems out of place, just say something. We'll clean it up. And then we also distribute educational materials to the public through all the aforementioned items through Park and Rec, community brochure, utility mailings, and so on. Illicit discharge, goldfish, koi, you would never think it. A number of years ago, back in I think it was 2009, we had a pond that we discovered that we had goldfish. Someone had released them into the pond. So we ended up pumping the pond down in November, freezing all the goldfish out. Went back the next spring, all the fish were gone. Fantastic, mission accomplished. Went to inspect that pond again here this summer, and the goldfish are back.
Goldfish are back.
So please don't put species, non-native species into these ponds. The DNR, this is an absolute no-no. It's actually a violation of state law. This is something a conservation can come give you a written ticket for. Technically, I think per our ordinance, the city, if we found out who was doing this, we could charge them the cost to treat this pond or to eradicate these species because they're non-native. This pond is directly connected to the Crow with just a pipe. So during large rain events, chances are some of these fish are actually migrating out of the pond. So this November, we'll probably end up pumping the pond down again and killing all the goldfish. As part of that, it's educating the landowners around the pond. Don't place goldfish, this is a violation of state law. It's doing that all over again, sending them another letter. But this stuff does happen. I thought it was worth noting.
If goldfish get into the river, can they survive a winter in the river? Or?
Sure they can. They're a carp species. So they're just like any other type of carp. I'm sure they can survive. And they get
We haven't found any alligators.
No, not like that. I wouldn't put it past somebody to have one of those in a pond too someday. And this isn't the best one yet. I got another one coming.
It's not legal to even transfer crappies or sunfish into these ponds.
Correct, that's true too. Yeah, don't do that. And we know there's ponds in town too that have some panfish in them as well. But yeah, that's not permitted as well. Construction site stormwater runoff control, the one picture I had with all the dirt tracking out of the street, that was one part of that program, a great example of that, whenever we see tracking out onto the street or inlet protections that are plugged or not in place because they're or bio rolls or things that have been moved, those are all things that we look for and inspect. That's inspecting projects as they're ongoing, and then also reviewing stormwater design criteria to make sure that it's meeting the city standards and state standards. And then it's also implementing a stormwater call number, which is my office line, relative to anything related to construction sites or illicit discharges or something that seems out of place. If it's gonna rain and it's gonna wash away, always please feel free to give me a call. Some common things, as I noted, site and stockpiles aren't protected properly, dewatering of sediment that's really murky or muddy into our system, tracking out of the street. These aren't as common as they once were, so the program is working. Contractors are becoming much more diligent in how they're managing their sites and reducing these issues. So, but as I said, if you see something that's bad or something that catches your eye or out of place, feel free to let us know.
I know some things get sent out in the utility bills, so homeowners see some information. Contractors, are they provided information?
Yep,
annually?
every time they pull a permit, they get a handout of information with all the things that we're looking for, what the city's requirements are. Actually, as part of our annual report, that's one of the questions the MPCA asks. How many different incidents or illicit discharges did you have, and where did they originate from, staff or the public? And that's what they're really looking for is an indicator is, are you educating your staff? Are you getting more calls from the public or from your staff on these items? And generally in Hutchinson, through our annual reports, I'd say typically it's a little bit more percentage of staff reported, which is a good thing, I think. I always tell our staff when we do that education that you are the eyes and ears. You're out there all the time. You guys are the feet on the street. If you see something like that, notify us. We are supposed to be held to a higher standard and really set the bar within the community. So they're not afraid to let us know or let me know when they see something like that.
When we pull a permit for new construction or a garage or something as part of the site plan, we've got to show the concrete washout area, but I think most of the concrete trucks now have self-contained washout on them, so that's eliminated a lot of the problem.
Yeah, that's one example of a best management practice that kind of eliminated the need for the other.
We used to put a pool out, a kid's pool out.
Right, or just some plastic sheeting is fine too. As also part of the programs are post-construction requirements to identify where ponds are needed, how big those ponds and best management practices need to be. And then it's also, as part of that, is currently implementing our operation and maintenance process for best management practices, which means cleaning out ponds, managing vegetation, cleaning out outfalls and things of that sort. A big part of our program is, as I noted earlier, is controlling how our system operates so that our system itself isn't contributing to stormwater pollution. As part of that, it's educating our staff. Our street sweeping program is a huge one. That's a great cost-effective way of managing these pollutants and keeping them from getting into our pipes and getting into rivers. That's really one of our first lines of defense, other than just reducing the amount of salt and sand that we use, which we've been actively doing. Another big part of that is trying to get it picked up before it has a chance to wash away. Likewise with our leaf pickup program, that's worth noting as well. It's getting that material out off the street. I know it seems kind of ironic that we actually put it in the street, but that makes it the process more efficient to actually pick it up and remove it. We get more effective results by actually allowing people to put that material in the street for a day. Inspections of our stormwater system controls. In 2017, we inspected 12 of our 52 ponds and 32 of our 76 outfalls. And then it's follow-up inspections and repairs to infrastructure if there is a need of maintenance. So if an outfall needs to be cleaned out, it gets cleaned out, follow up and verify that that's been cleaned out. Documenting is a key component of our MS4 program, and all those numbers that you see within our annual report has to be supported with some form of documentation. If we didn't document it, it didn't happen. Just a sample photo of one of our outfalls. You can see there's a bunch of trash, organic debris, buildup sticks. The pipe's still flowing, it still functions, but definitely needed some maintenance. And sometimes you need a backhoe to fix them. Sometimes all you need is a little hand shovel and a garbage bag. We see the wide spectrum of all these things depending on the type of BMP or best management practice that it is. Additional information, we're a local resource for answering stormwater questions. If it's questions from businesses, landowners, even other communities call and ask questions. It's just an information sharing thing that the city does. I think it's important that we do that with other communities as well. And in our involvement with the Minnesota City Stormwater Coalition, participation in South Fork Crow River TMDL, it's pending approval. I know it's something we've been talking about for a number of years, but soon, probably in the next permit, MS4 permit reissuance, which is I've heard as the latest should be reissued early in 2019. As part of that we will be reporting on progress to meet the TMDL requirements. I'll get more into that probably in the next cycle once we start reporting on it, what TMDLs are, ultimately what it's intended to do. And we also have beavers that have moved into town. At one of our ponds, actually tonight after leave here, I'm meeting a trapper in one of our stormwater ponds. Beaver moved up a public ditch, or actually it's a private ditch. They built a dam, built 2 huts, and now the beaver's got to go. So it's interesting the things we experience and learn. The dam that they created actually raised the elevation of that pond about 4 feet. So that's a lot of water. Generally, we design ponds to have about 2 foot of freeboard above the high water elevation just as a safety factor. We're into that elevation already. Fortunately, the ditch that's dammed is right over the side of the berm. So I don't think it would ever impact any homes. If it was completely cut off, it would still flow overland, but it's something that we can't allow to persist, so we actually have to remove the beavers out of there. And once again, similar to working with the koi issue, talk to the DNR, find out, develop a plan, find a trapper, go through that process. And part of this will also be educating the homeowners too. If you see something like this, let us know. This isn't something that's normal, something that we want to see. These things can be very damaging. And generally speaking, one of the things we actually asked was, could these possibly be relocated? Our environmental intern actually asked the question. She's an animal lover, and the DNR says that's a terrible idea. It's moving a problem from here somewhere else. So,
We just moved to Glencoe.
yeah, I could do that, but and there's actually 2 huts too. So I don't know how many are out there, but we'll find out soon enough.
Jeez.
The joys of owning stormwater ponds. And then looking ahead, working on pond cleanout project this summer. Actually, it'll be our first where we're actually going to draw down a pond that's up by the greens, up off the north end of Golf Course Road. So that'll actually be pumping down the water, excavating material out of there, and then disposing of it. We've had it tested. The material's actually clean, so we can dispose of it on a city project where we need fill. Actually, it'll be on a city property, not a city project. But fortunately, we don't have the added expense of disposing of the material in the landfill. The Lake River Basin nutrient trading potential, as the wastewater treatment facility is working through their permit reissuance, which should be coming here by the sounds of it potentially this year. That's one of the ideas that came up is there potential for removing sediment and actually receiving credit for the amount of nutrients removed that's bound up in that sediment. So that's something that's really in its infancy. Ongoing MS4 activities as we work through the year, through training, through events, through development. And then pond surveying, something that's ongoing. If you see a kayak out with a long-haired brunette paddling around, don't be alarmed. She's just out surveying ponds. And then seek and evaluate funding sources for basin sediment management options. That's something else that we're keeping our ear to the ground on. If you're aware of what they did in Champlin here in the last year or two, they received a big pile of money from the state through different avenues to possibly do some cleanouts, something that we could potentially pursue within the city here as well. So we'll keep our ears to the ground on that, and also work with partners and other people within the network to see, hey, if there's other opportunities or potential that you see that we may not be aware of, is to keep us informed.
It's more than just keeping our ears open, right, Kent? I mean, isn't that part of, that was kind of with the strategic plan and
Yeah, I think,
about some of that?
yeah, it's more than, I think we were fortunate enough that our ears heard about what
Yeah,
happened in
right.
Champlin, I guess, that John just alluded to. So, yeah, definitely, we're exploring opportunities on that front and different funding avenues, like John alluded to. But this Champlin scenario is very interesting. We're going to continue to research that and work with the consultant in the city there that we're involved in that to learn more.
Already touched on pond surveying. Just some of the information that we collect when we go out and actually do these is evaluating the depth composition of the bottom of the pond. Is it soft sediment or is it hard bottom? It helps us prioritize too where maintenance needs are for these different basins. All the different feedback, information, data that's collected when we go out there and do that. Pond hard, or bottom hardness, vegetative growth, bio volume availability. And any question.
On the stormwater ponds, there's a bunch of private ones too. Is there help to clean those out too, John, or not? Or-
I have information and I have shared it with people. A lot of times it'll originate with a contractor. The latest one was the Oaks and the Pines. They did some clean out here this last winter. Contractor approached the city and said, hey, what are the requirements of it? What are the types of things that we need to look out for or do? So it's part of it is helping them understand about sediment sampling and what different type of contaminants can exist in those types of ponds. Also providing them guidance as far as timing, when's the best time to do these types of things. Depends on the pond and the location and all those things. So, yeah, I provide information that we're aware of and knowledge that we may know of that may help them with the process or help streamline their maintenance projects. So anytime there's questions within the community, if they have a privately owned stormwater plant, feel free to give us a call. Chances are you're going to need a permit to do the work anyway. So,
John, how often do you sample for the sediment in those ponds?
when we determine the pond needs to be excavated, it's very expensive. Generally, it's a couple $100 per sediment core. Depending on how much sediment you're proposing to excavate out of a pond, you might have to take 3, 4, 5 different sediment cores. So we're not going to sample them all. Some communities in the metro where they have more problems with the contaminant of concern called PAHs, they've actually gone out and actively started sampling all their ponds to assess and evaluate exactly how big of a problem this contaminant is, so they get a better understanding long-term what type of cost or risk they have associated with the materials or sediment bound up in their ponds. It could be in the millions, tens of millions of dollars for Minnesota communities relative to disposal, just the disposal cost if the material is contaminated with this PAH.
And what's that acronym standard, do you know?
Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, it's a good one.
Okay.
Basically, it's coal tar. It's a coal tar base. It's partial combustion. Actually, we consume PAHs anytime we barbecue. That great taste on the bottom of that charcoal grill, that's partially combusted material or PAHs that are in there. But usually it's associated with coal tar sealants used on pavements, bituminous seal coating. It's actually not allowed anymore, but a lot of that's remnants from before that ban was put in place.
We passed a law, ordinance a couple of years ago to outlaw coal tar.
To use asphalt-based seal coating, correct. So that's what that originated, that's what that was driven by. So I don't know if we need I don't think technically we need approval to submit the annual report, but if you want to so move, I'm sure you can.
Oh, we'll ask for public comment.
Okay.
No public comments on this exciting topic?
No, I can't believe it. Everybody was on the edge of their seat when John talked.
I'd move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion by John, second by Chad to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That's all you really need. So,
Don't need anything. Alrighty.
Well, again, I just want to thank the public, for watching out too. They're part of the watchdogs and letting us know about issues and getting a hold of John. When you look at the report, there are a number of instances where that was done, as well as staff doing things too. So working together.
Well, it's a big deal that not blow the grass clippings out into the street, right? I mean, that really pollutes bad.
And we still see it. It's more, I think, just habit, or someone just doesn't think about it and they don't make a conscious decision where they see it. I said a lot of times it's just, if I see it actually occurring, I'll just pull over, roll my window down, and they'll turn the mower off and I say, yeah, just blow the clippings back on the boulevard. Oh, yeah. So a lot of times it's as simple as it is, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes people are a little bit more defiant than that.
You need one of the old police cruisers with lights on it then.
I have a colleague in Mankato that actually has a leaf blower that he carries around just for that purpose. So.
Excellent. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Review of the annual city energy consumption report.
Me again.
Oh, John, you're still here.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Each year we provide an annual update on our previous year's energy consumption. What I'll do is I'll provide you a brief overview of just the general table, take a look at some comparison charts as well, touch on the aggregate energy savings, and then open it up to any questions. This information is collected basically directly from Hutchinson Utilities. So the city monitors a total of about 110 meters in combination of electric and natural gas meters. I actually did a presentation the other day, and I did the math. Since 2006, we've been benchmarking every utility meter that the city owns and operates. Over 110 meters over since 2006, over a 12-year period, 12 months for each individual data point. It came out to a total of like 31,000 data points that we've been collecting since 2006, which is really, really impressive. The fact that you can use that data for a number of different things to look long-term, short-term, identify maintenance needs, identify issues, opportunities. It also helps kind of pave the way for some of the decisions we make on our capital improvement project planning processes as well. So it's good information. We'll continue to collect it. We like doing it so much that we actually benchmark it into two databases. One is just a city-created spreadsheet, and the other is actually B3 benchmarking, which is a state-run program, which requires public entities to benchmark data, I think in any building over 10,000 square feet. So we benchmark 13 different facilities on that site as well. Actually, I'll jump to a chart here first. People love charts. So this is just a snapshot in time. The dotted dash line you'll see is a baseline. And what the baseline consists of is information primarily originating from the original baseline year of 2006. But that's also been adjusted over time for things like major modifications to our wastewater plant, a new water plant, aquatic center as an example. So the 2017 aquatic center usage was actually factored into the original baseline. So there's actually a 0% impact on the baseline comparison from the aquatic center in 2017. So in 2018, however it's relative, we've used less energy or less natural gas in 2018 compared to 2017 for the aquatic center. We'll be able to capture that and actually see that. So what you'll see is on the dash or the dotted line, everything else is trending pretty much below that, which is a good sign. I think that's indicative of the progress that we've made from different things through the original performance contract that we did in 2010. Things such as like the solar array don't necessarily impact our energy usage because that's still factored into our consumption. Since we're using that energy at the facility still, we still include that as an actual net consumption. So it's not actually an energy saving. And that's just our electric. I'll jump to the gas here. Similar with the gas, the baseline's actually the dark blue line. We don't see quite as much savings with gas just because the opportunity's not there. When I get to the table, you'll actually see our biggest savings on our consumption is at our water and wastewater facilities because that's where the most opportunity exists. That's not a surprise. A lot of entities take that approach. You target the biggest users first. That's usually where the lowest hanging fruit is, just through managing how you operate a piece of equipment or a facility that's a high energy user. You can make a lot of impacts just through low cost changes. And so I think the point is that electric's different than gas, and the fact that gas, there's just less opportunity there. Not to say that there's not any, but it's just harder to see and realize those bigger savings. And then on a citywide scale, on an annual basis, that just gives you a snapshot in time comparison to 2008 and 2009. You'll see the citywide usage spiked up. That's because of those major facilities at the water and wastewater plant that were brought online. And then the benchmark was adjusted, and then over time it's reflected. We saw in 2013, 2014, our natural gas was higher, but those were also colder years. So that's reflected also too through heating degree day inventorying as well. And then our annual electric usage on an annual basis, that's been trending downward, but as you'll see, that's kind of flatlined or plateaued. We haven't seen any major changes or reductions in our energy consumption over about the last 4 or 5 years. something that we've considered as far as looking at is, have we plucked all that low-hanging fruit, and what's next? What other opportunities exist? And on the docket for later tonight is one of those things we'll be talking about. So. And then, as I noted, the table, this is basically a breakdown by department. So many of these departments have multiple meters. The Parks Department has by far the most, with parks spread out and strewn across the city. But generally, relative to the baseline, you'll see that the wastewater and water departments are by far the biggest savers, because I think, like I said, the biggest opportunity exists there. That 79% at the water department is not an anomaly. That was something that through just the operation of our facility and transitioning away from actually using hanging unit heaters to using more of a dehumidification system within our process control area in the water plant, we've basically eliminated the need to heat those areas other than with a little localized space heating. So we're not using heaters to dry that space. We're using actual more efficient dehumidification processes. And then as you go down the line, the red is a great sign. The red that's where savings are relative to the baseline year. Parks, I think probably Parks is most affected by the fact that they're variable just from their hours of operation, the number of people that are coming and going. You'll see that ebb and flow over time. Each year we see that spike up and down. Sometimes there's not really a rhyme or reason why that occurs, but I think more so than anything, conversations with Dolph and their staff, it's probably more so just because of the programming that they provide and the variability associated with it. And as I noted earlier, the aquatic center is included in all these baseline comparisons, so it was adjusted to include the aquatic center's initial year usage in 2017. Overall, total department usage, the city's down 20% compared to the baseline for electric consumption and 14% for natural gas. And then when you normalize that for KWH equivalents, it equates to about a 17.56% reduction in our overall energy consumption across all of our city operations since the baseline year. Lots of numbers. Where the rubber meets the road. One thing that we started doing here just a couple of years ago when we had our Green Corps member, Jamie Johnson, was actually taking some of this information and actually converting it to understand what are the actual cost savings that we're realizing. So that exercise we've continued on. After initially establishing that, we started looking at, how much are we actually realizing in savings on an annual basis. So as an example, this can be kind of confusing if you don't understand what you're looking at. The number on the left in that column is the actual baseline cost for that facility, and then each subjective year after that is the actual cost for that facility in that year. So the difference between those is the actual savings realized, which if you extend those out over that 8-year period equals the total aggregate savings on the right. And then when you add those numbers up all the way down the list, over that 8-year period, the city saved over $1.8 million just in energy consumption. On average, yeah, it's about $200,000 to $250,000 a year.
So a 5% tax rate.
Yeah, on an annual basis, absolutely. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. That's the general gist of it. One thing that's always a topic of discussion as well is the solar production as well. We haven't received the 2017 M&B report from Amoresco at this time. Something that we'll bring forward to the council here later in the year once we have that full assessment of the operation of that facility, how the panels are working, inverters, and so on and so forth. So currently, based on the information that we had, it finished really close at the end of 2017 to what was projected within the original contract. It was actually a tick under what the actual guaranteed amount was, but not sure if that was contributed by some of the inverter issues that we had. So it wasn't nearly as significant. Not that it was significant the year before, but it wasn't as significant as the year before.
So is that reflected in the baseline cost comparison, that chart?
Yes, it
Since
is.
those are dollars there?
Yep, those are real dollars. So those savings that we're realizing from the production of the solar array, that is reflected in those aggregate savings. It doesn't look like it on the chart, but you also got to think that, or understand that all the additional things that are occurring on the city within those 110 meters, those things are going to go up and down. And probably one of the biggest things you'll see that's not relative to consumption versus cost is the demand cost. Those are factored into this. So a demand cost can be can be variable over at the wastewater plant or the water plant, where we might actually use less energy, but our costs might actually go up because we have more demand during any given month, which will throw that off over the course of the year. So that's something, and when we're talking, 3 or 4% of the overall annual energy cost of the city being offset by the solar array, 3 or 4% is not much. That can be easily impacted just through things like demand or other outside. So, but yeah, we have seen that, especially if you look just at the wastewater plants, that individual meter, factor that cost in what they're seeing. Yeah, it's almost relative. It's not quite 1-to-1. It's probably more like 1.2 to 1 what those savings are cost wise. But like I said, I think a big part of that is because of demand charges.
Anything else for John?
Well, I think timing is good when we've gone to some of the awards we've gotten and some of the Q&As. The questions are, well, what's next for Hutchinson? And we'll be talking about that later on.
Yeah, we got more to do, always. Thank you. I ain't going anywhere.
Unfinished business on ordinance number 18-783, ordinance revising chapter 90 of the Hutchinson City Code right-of-way, second reading and adoption. You, Kent? Or is that you, John?
Between John, Matt.
John
What
again?
I will do is I'll just provide a brief update. We have made minor change to it in response to some questions that received. There may be others, but what I'll do is I'll just touch base on that quick. Since we've been through the process a number of times, kind of providing an overview of what the ordinance is. Chapter 90 is the right-of-way ordinance, a hybrid of what the city's language was pre-existing, and then merging that with the League of Minnesota Cities model right-of-way ordinance. Through comments received through from the carriers or legal representative of some of the carriers, comments received by council, we've made a number of revisions from what staff had originally arrived at our first public hearing, probably almost 2 months ago now. But the most recent change that we had within the right-of-way ordinance was really quite small. It was removing a couple of definitions that aren't used elsewhere within the ordinance. So that change is reflected in the language that you have for consideration in the second reading tonight. One thing also worth noting before I forget is that if you decide to approve the ordinance, that it would also be approval of the summary ordinance, which needs to pass by a 4 out of 5 to be able to publish a summary ordinance rather than having to publish the whole thing. You can imagine we'd be buying half the paper for just these two ordinances. Yeah, so, or the print would be really, really tiny. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt or Kent if you have any other additional items to add.
I don't believe so. Yes. Council is
Turn it
in.
back to the council. I know
Yeah.
that was tabled at the last meeting.
Yeah, and if you have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I did, had shared some questions and got answers on those definition removal. That was one of the things, and I know most of what's being driven, or this was driven by, was trying to include language for the small cell, and but I guess when I look at it, I'm fine with passing this, but maybe there's opportunities to look at some of the other language that just right of way in general, some of the other things that I pointed out or questioned that maybe, again, there's opportunities to just tweak this a little bit more somewhere down the road. So.
If you recall, it's actually interesting that's the thought process. Last year, when we originally passed the first change to the telecommunications ordinance, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 months later, we started this process all over again. So because of the state statute and things. So yeah, I think that's definitely an opportunity that we can look at.
Yeah. But thanks for getting back, everybody, with the answers, the questions.
Yeah, I think the questions you've asked were good. It just, at this point, wasn't something that we were focusing.
Yeah.
So I think, I would agree with Steve, I think we're trying to deal with, some of the small cell stuff that's in front of us, and obviously we approve it, but we actually have to go back and take a look at some of that language to ensure it matches some of our other ordinances.
Looking for a motion to approve the ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to approve the ordinance. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Ordinance number,
Well, just, do we need to,
Take action on the summary ordinance as well?
that's included at the back end of the ordinance, right?
Correct.
We should formally
Sure.
have the council approve the summary ordinance, which is at the back end. of the ordinance.
The last
Yep.
page. Yep.
Last page.
Yep.
I'd make a motion to approve the summary ordinance.
I'll second it. Motion by John, second by myself to approve the ordinance. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to new business, Amoresco
Nope.
project.
We got telecommunications yet.
Oh. I thought that's the one,
Just, can I ask a question with the summary ordinance? You said it needed 4 out of 5, but it doesn't really indicate that. Do
Mark
we need to
knows
indicate
that better,
that?
yeah.
Yeah,
There's a reason why, I'm not sure why.
okay.
Right, so if an ordinance, as it's being approved, is of a certain length, the state statute allows you to publish a summary of that ordinance to save the publication costs.
Sure.
And just as part of that statute, that says that, okay, if you're gonna avoid this publication or lessen the publication requirement, you have to have a supermajority vote of the council to do that.
Okay, so- and that's just noted in the minutes then?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's got to be published and then, but the rest of it's available online, and this ties into the senator from Princeton,
Right, and we have to have a copy here for public review.
public, yeah.
Okay.
so we need a motion on that.
Yeah, we had that
Yeah,
motion.
move to approve.
Telecommunications is the next one.
Yeah,
Yep.
12 now.
So 18-784.
Yep.
Ordinance revision, chapter 154.119 of the Hutchinson City Code telecommunications.
I'll also provide just a brief summary on that. Telecommunications ordinance was being revised to reflect changes relative to the small cell statute and to establish some consistencies between the two because the language was quite different. We removed a lot of the language from the telecommunications ordinance, which was originally targeting small cell within and outside of right-of-ways. So we clarified a lot of that information. Since the last time we were here, we did make one revision to that ordinance as well, which is also reflected in the packet and the language that you have. And that was associated with section U1A6 by removing a C3 central commercial district and moving it to U1A7, which requires a conditional use permit within the central commercial district. I believe it's just the downtown commercial district. That's the only change that was reflected since the initial reading of the ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the telecommunications ordinance, or if there's any other that staff would like to add.
I guess there's 2 minor changes that I'd like the council to consider. One is on page 6. It's B, telecommunication facilities. B, C, it says the new or replacement tower antenna, including attachments other than lightning rods, shall not exceed 150 feet. Measured from grade, I'd ask the council to consider putting existing grade. That matches some of our other definitions in 152, or, yeah, 152, and in earlier parts of 154. And I think the second change for consideration would be, so on page 9. John, you and I talked about this. We've got, this is item number F, it says tower locations. in that it says towers not exceeding 75 feet in height may be erected after the issuance of a building permit without a conditional use permit. I guess we have all of our other towers identified. So there's really not a need for that sentence. So that could really be Xed out. So, because when we talk about, we've identified antennas, we've identified what the,
Macro sites, the taller towers for large cellular installations, small cells also covered within the regulations identified here, and then the amateur radio antennas as well. And
kind of a blanket, and right now there's
nothing else that would fall within that definition. And if something does come up or is proposed that doesn't meet the definitions or the intent of what's identified there, we can amend the ordinance to reflect that or capture that.
So just to clarify, you're striking the last sentence
Yes.
in F? The
Yes.
first paragraph of
Correct.
F.
first paragraph.
Towers not exceeding 75 feet in height may be erected after the issuance of a building permit without a conditional use permit?
Correct. Those would be the two additional changes.
I would make a motion to approve the ordinance with those revisions.
I'll second that.
Motion by John, second by Chad with the revisions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Summary ordinance.
Can I just ask one question? I didn't quite,
Go ahead.
just with the CUP for the downtown district, is the downtown district just, again, that Hassan to Franklin and River to Fifth Avenue, if I believe, right? Do we want any of them there, or maybe it's just to allow them on a roof potentially, I guess that's.
Do we have any, are you asking if we have any in that area right now?
Yeah, right now, we would allow them, first it was gonna be allowed, but then we made it conditional use, but I guess the question is, do we want them at all in the downtown district?
Downtown would extend all the way over to the VFW, wouldn't it? That's because we modified the sign ordinance to allow the electronic sign there.
Signs.
Yeah, I think you're right,
signs,
to
but-
the east, yeah. Not sure what the strict definition of downtown district
Let me see
is.
if we have,
It's just the C3 district, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
So that goes all the way over to
Street,
Adams.
Yep.
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah.
The pink is your C3 district. And that's the only place it's found, I believe.
Oh.
So from Bluff to, looks like Franklin, and then from Third all the way up to the river. Or Adams to Glen. One thing worth noting, I believe it's in the telecommunications ordinance. It references things associated with if mounted on a building. So in the downtown district, more often than not, if we're talking downtown, those buildings are, right up against the right of way, they're tall buildings. So there's language associated with how high off the ground. It has to be at least 18 feet off the ground. The building has to be at least 20 feet tall, so that equipment has to be mounted out of sight. Basically, that's why it's intended, or that's why that language exists. That doesn't preclude it from getting a CUP, but there is language specifically associated with allowing that type of development in a downtown district, and that's what that language is intended to do, is get it up and out of the sight line. Doesn't eliminate the risk of that occurring behind Citizens Bank or something, not on a building, but
Even then, the CUP process also provides some guidance and protection.
correct.
Thank you.
So we need a motion for
approve the summary publication.
summary.
I'll make a motion to approve the summary ordinance.
Second that.
Motion by John, second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Amoresco Project Development Agreement.
I'll introduce them too if you want me to.
Go ahead, you're on a roll.
I'm on a roll.
You're on a roll.
Before us tonight, Mr. Mayor, council members, are representatives from Amoresco. City staff has worked with Amoresco in the past. John Neville's a familiar face, and then Don is also a friendly face around here. We work closely with these folks on a number of different projects in the past and developing a preliminary assessment, which was included in your packet for your review. Wasn't necessarily for consideration, just for informational purposes. And what they'll be talking about tonight is a potential next step with the city pursuing a project potentially with Amoresco moving forward. John will provide a overview, and I think Don will jump in and provide some insight as well. So I'll hand it over to those folks. Get this up here for you though, John.
Thank you for your patience.
Here you go.
Thanks, John Paulson. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Again, John Neville with Amoresco, and with me here tonight is Dawn Lasota, who's engineer for our office. So just a little history, as John alluded to, was we were here a number of months ago, requested approval to do a preliminary study of the entire city itself. We did that. We delivered that report that you have in front of you, a fairly thick one. We met with city staff a number of times, all the building folks from the city, and we sorted out a number of energy efficiency measures that should be included for council consideration. Apparently there was a meeting a number of weeks back with some council members to further fine-tune those list of energy measures, and that's what's included in your packet tonight. So we're prepared tonight to go through kind of two steps in our proposal. One is just a little background and summary of who Amoresco is and some of our capabilities and some of our experience with some other cities around the state. And then we have some time available to get into the energy specific measures, and Dawn can go through a lot of the technical details. So I'd like to ask City Council on timetable tonight. Would you like me to go through it? You have it in your packet. I don't know if you all had a chance to review it. I could run through some of the who's Amoresco and some of the organizations and cities that we're working with right now fairly quickly. If you're looking to save a little time,
That would be
I
fine.
see some nods, okay. I'll run through fairly quick, and then we'll get into some specifics about the 4 energy efficiency measures that have been selected by city staff and some of the council members, and then we'll be requesting your approval to move forward on a detailed study. So, can I just click here, Jen? Okay.
Enter the arrow if you want, John.
Oh, okay,
That's the
good,
easiest one.
thank you. Technical details. Okay, so we were here a year ago, and we started the project with you folks back in 2010. We did the first energy efficiency project with you. We did the solar project in 2014. Way back when we were a company of $650 million, and now we're up to 717. If you look at us on Wall Street, we're a company that's growing, totally independent, and this is all we do is energy efficiency and solar projects with entities like yourself. Just not too long ago, earlier in the month, was the big international or local and national city sustainability goals. A lot of activity with all the cities. 404 cities are jumping on the bandwagon with sustainability goals. I know that's the folks here have a plan in place to move forward on sustainability. And then here's some of the latest cities we've been involved with. We just are finishing a project in the upper left with Minnesota State Mankato. Full campus lighting and efficiency retrofit at the campus. 45 buildings, 3 million square foot. We're working right now with the city of St. Peter on a similar street lighting energy efficiency project. I think you're aware of us working with the airport. We just got awarded the University of Minnesota, all 4 campuses on solar photovoltaic. It's going to be probably one of the largest solar PVs, non-utility grade in the state. We're working with the city of Moorhead. I think we met some of those folks up at the League of Minnesota Cities. We've got a huge project with the city of Chicago. We're doing all the streetlights for the city, $150 million. And, you know, City of St. Paul, we're just working now with the city of Apple Valley, New Brighton. We're just finishing a phase 2 and we're moving into a phase 3 with the city of Mankato. So I guess the bottom line is we have a lot of experience with working with entities like yourself on these type of projects. We're also in development with these various cities, City of Mankato on phase 3, City of Woodbury, etc. And then just some of our latest awards. We just got awarded with the City of Mankato, Business View magazine, national press coverage. We can bring that to the table for the city of Hutchinson. We're a member of that Business View magazine. We were just at the Clean Energy Community Awards, which you folks won the prior year with our project at Minnesota State. In April, we were awarded and started construction on the U of M project. We started construction in May. We're awarded with the city of Apple Valley. And just recently, just this month, we were awarded the Hennepin Technical College, which is 2 facilities, one in Eden Prairie and one in Maple Grove, about 1 million square foot on both of those campuses. So a lot of activity going on with our office. Lots of awards. We won 7 awards for the airport project. A number of awards which I saw out in the lobby here for the city of Hutchinson. Congratulations again. And let's see, oops, how do I head back here, John? How do I go backwards? Left. Left.
You zoomed on me.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
That one for one
Oh,
more.
so yeah, I just wanted to, do we recognize any faces there?
We may have ridden our bicycles there.
Yeah. Yeah, we should have had the bicycles in the background. That was a feat. How many miles was that, by the way?
80?
80? Wow.
No, I don't think it was quite that.
Yeah, most impressive. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn at this point. The timing is perfect with John talking about the State of the Union on the energy efficiency and the total energy budget for the city. So here's kind of our same analysis of that, of the city analysis.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening. I'll be talking more on the technical aspects of the project. So when we first start looking at the project, we always look at the utility information you have, and thanks to your group and what John presented earlier, you have a really good baseline, a lot of good history for us to use. So we pulled data from the B3 benchmarking tool to show you what we have here. And these are all the facilities listed at the bottom that we were looking at as part of this project. And we took the utility information from that B3 database to get an idea of the energy use in these various facilities. And then we charted that to see, you know, this type of chart helps us to understand where we should really focus our efforts. By this chart, you can see we didn't need to spend a lot of time at like cold storage, but we really wanted to focus on your streetlights and your water and wastewater treatment plants. However, we did go through all the facilities and look at the mechanical spaces, the lighting, and energy-using components to get an idea of opportunity. Also spent a lot of time with staff and to understand where the maintenance needs might also be. So as a result of that analysis, this is an idea of the size of the project, looking at all those facilities and various improvements in each of those. This is a high-level analysis based on kind of past projects. What we see on this one, it's a big chunk of it is the lighting, a lot of street lighting you have, and the various facility lighting, but also the wastewater treatment plant blowers are a chunk of that as well. So.
Can I ask a question with that?
Sure.
So it's roughly just energy savings, O&M, it's, again, roughly 20-year payback, 19-year. will we see, like if they're solar panels, they'll last longer, they should. I don't know about the LED streetlights. Should we expect them to last, or are we just going to be replacing them at the end of payback period? So.
Streetlights are, right now, they're about 100,000 hours, so you would, they would have the full life in that term. And this is just at the high level, we look at a 20-year term, but as we're developing projects, staff has kind of directed our focus to some of the more important projects for the city with the streetlights, facility lighting, and the wastewater treatment plant. So as we're developing that, we can, you know, look, it might come in lower than that, you know, and also with rebates and O&M savings. So, but yes, anything that when we do the cash flow analysis, if there was anything that required, hey, at year 10, you need to do this kind of replacement, we would include that cost in there so you could get a real idea of what the cash flow would look like. So first thing we looked at was LED streetlights. We got a lot of information on the existing streetlights that you have. Right now, it's typically you can cut your energy use by half, and you really extend your life to the 100,000 hours. You eliminate, you know, any type of the ballast, which might have hazardous material in it, or also you have better quality of light. So we're seeing a lot of cities going this route. LEDs have come down in price, and so that's helped a lot, and the quality has gotten a lot better. And we're aware of various concerns regarding, you know, like the color temperature. So, you know, the color temperature, like 5,000 Kelvin, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that's more of like a daylight. That's more harsh on the eyes, where your existing lighting systems might be more in the 3,000 range. So we could do samples and, you know, during this next phase to make sure that we're getting the right color temperature that you need. You guys already have some LEDs out there in your streetlights. You already have a good idea of probably what you need there. So, but yeah, it's just a drastic difference in energy consumption and life, and it saves a lot of, you know, maintenance costs because you're not out there having to replace different things every, you know, 10 years.
Can you touch on the dark sky compliant?
Sure, yeah, you can, if you're looking for dark sky compliance, there are the fixtures you can purchase with shielding, you know, to make that happen. There's also different shieldings you can do for, if you're in residential areas, to keep it from shining, you know, in their house. You want it down on the sidewalk in the street. So that when you're ordering fixtures, that's something you specify for different areas. The next thing is, these are just some examples of some lighting at some various facilities that we've already done. You can see it's more of a white light than the yellow of some of the high-pressure sodium, the HIDs that are out there. The white light is also nice from a security standpoint, as it gives better color rendition. So if, say, like, there's, you know, a criminal and you can really tell what color they're wearing versus, you know, guessing as under the yellow light. So that's a nice attribute with LEDs. In the top right corner, that's actually Mankato, and they have a control system on their streetlights that they've incorporated. And in their downtown areas, they were seeing, you know, the higher crime rates, so they can lift all the lights up at certain hours. So, like, say at 10 to midnight or 10 to 1 in the morning, they'll bump up all their light levels in that area to help distract from crime. So, you know, that's always an option we can look at. There, you know, smart cities using streetlights, because streetlights are everywhere, and when you put the control node on there, you have a lot of points of communication that can happen. So that is something we can look at for Hutchinson if you're interested.
So what Dawn's talking about there is the university is there in the city of Mankato, so when bar time gets over, they turn the lighting system up to accommodate any activities after bar time.
College students aren't old enough to drink off.
And this is just, you guys have a really good database of your street lighting system. So this is just a map of your various street lights, and where, you know, as of earlier this year, where the LEDs were is the kind of the turquoise, and all the yellow or the high pressure sodium. And so those we generally see, it's probably roughly about half of your wattage reduction, maybe 3/4, so. Then we're gonna also look at your field lighting. So these, you know, in other cities, we haven't got up there to see what the wattage was, but they're, you know, over 1,000 watts a lot of times. And with the field lighting, you have to, with this type of lighting, you have to turn them on in advance to get that warm up time and that full brightness. There's also a buzz with with the HID lighting. So we're seeing a trend to move to LEDs, and also for maintenance costs, because you don't have to get up and down and as often. And so one we just analyzed for the city of Apple Valley, there were over 1,000 watts per fixture, and we were able to, in the analysis, reduce it to about 400 watts per fixture by leaving the same poles, reusing the existing poles. And then you can have the controls with that as well and then they come on just right when you need them. You don't have to wait for the warm-up time. So the one challenge with field lighting is the amount of burn hours. You know, you typically aren't lighting fields unless you have hockey or something in the winter, or it's just a few hours a night. So in our analysis, we take all that into account, see if the hours are long enough to make it pay for itself. And facility lighting, we went through all your spaces. We did a lighting retrofit project in 2010 to the low wattage fluorescents, and those are about 25 watts. Well, LED technology, you know, has changed drastically in the last few years, and the typical tubes we're seeing are about 10 to 12 watts now. So you can get half of your energy cut just by replacing those. And as we would be going through it, if the you know, an option, if the valves are in good shape, they should still be in good shape. You could just do a simple tube replacement. There's potentially good rebates on that as well. And then in your high bay areas where you might have fluorescence, we could go LED. Again, the lifespan is a lot longer than fluorescence even, so.
I have just one other question on the acronym, the HID lighting. What's the HID stand for?
High intensity discharge. And so that's your high pressure sodium, like your street lights or metal halides or mercury vapor type.
We give off that kind of
Yellow light.
glow to them versus the lighter LED output.
And the other nice thing with LED lighting is you don't have, in your tubes, you know, you have that mercury, so there's a disposal cost. With LEDs, you don't have that. So as part of, you know, becoming more environmentally conscious, you're getting rid of all of that when you go to LEDs. And then the other item was wastewater treatment plant, as you saw earlier, and from John's information prior, it's a big energy user, which is every city, it's a big energy user. So there's opportunity there. There's, you know, in addition to lighting, which is what we would do out there as well, we can look at your large motors on these blowers and to see if we can use them more efficiently by installing variable frequency drives and helping to control your DO content at the same time. So that's something we'll be looking at, and it could be a really big benefit too for the city.
Yeah, so bottom line summary is what we had on the earlier slide is potential savings for the city is another 20% reduction in the total energy costs that we itemized here and that John also verified. So again, you know, the city being fairly progressive and aggressive on energy efficiency and savings, here's an opportunity to move forward on another substantial project for the city. So really what we're looking for here is to move forward on a detailed study. The cost is $35,000, but there is actually no cost if we actually move forward and do a project for the city, just like we did on the prior two projects. It was all bundled in. And our timeline would be, assuming acceptance of that project development agreement this evening or shortly, we would move into the detailed study within a couple of months, be back with staff in August and be back in front of the council with our full report, which is basically the pricing of all the equipment, specifications, the scope of the project, energy savings, our guarantee, et cetera, the full, just like we did on the prior two projects, all the information to move forward on a project. And we would be able to start construction as early as September, October for the city. So I think that is the summary. So any particular questions on any aspects of the project that we can respond to?
Maybe just a couple things quickly
Absolutely.
to touch on. Yeah, first and foremost, John alluded to Mr. Neville here alluded to a meeting earlier with the council members. That was our resource allocation committee meeting where this potential agreement was discussed with Gary and Chad. So that was a past meeting on that front. Otherwise, yeah, resources looked at this. Facility committee has had discussions on this front. Yeah, if there's any questions regarding that, I'm sure Mr. Paulson could fill you in. And then also with respect to Hutch Utilities, we've been talking with Mr. Hunstead for years about LED lighting and how we could make that transition, how we could retrofit our existing fixtures. And I think the time has come, based on discussions with Dave, that the technology is arriving at, and I'm sure Mr. Neville and Don could verify but the technology is here. We always kind of question whether the technology would continue to advance on the LED front, and I think it's arrived at a price point that it's going to be here, or it's going to be at this point for some time. And really analyzing this transition and to do it in a cost-effective, timely manner is really the core of what we're asking Amoresco to do on the LED front within this project development agreement. You looked at the drawing up there that was shown earlier, the slide with the city's lighting inventory, and it shows a little bit of turquoise that we've implemented since 2015. And you can just imagine how long it would take to make that transition if we just simply keep doing it on a street project basis. And that's it.
I did the quick math on the 100,000 hours, and if the lights were on 12 hours a day, that'd be 22 years.
Exactly.
The lifetime of these bulbs, sort of 30.
Exactly, that's what we're seeing, and that's what the manufacturers are indicating. And most of the manufacturers, in fact, the ones that the city has already utilized and that we have a company-wide relationship with, has a 5 and a 10-year warranty available on the equipment. So in all of our applications, after the initial install, there's always a couple, that don't work appropriately, but those are all taken care of, and then once the project's all set up, they're burning free for 22 plus to 30 years with zero maintenance and operation from the city itself.
And that may almost be the bigger thing is maintenance.
Well, yeah, so there's no bucket trucks,
Well, utilities has the bucket trucks, but
Oh.
that we've utilized. And council's well aware of what's transpiring there. That relationship with utilities and the transfer is changing. Matt obviously knows the details of that more than I do. But from a financial standpoint, we're going to have to start to pay the electric bill on our street lighting, is what it boils down to. So now is really the time to take a good look at this and how quickly we could conceivably make this transition to LED lighting.
So just to tag on to Ken's statement, so, one of the key factors for a lot of cities that are moving forward is, we have relationship with the top 5 lighting manufacturers in the country. And with that relationship, we're a nationwide firm, we're doing a lot of business with them, so we get a fairly substantial discount. And then we're working with a lot of other cities, so we're gonna tag on our orders with this city with our others, so we'll get a further discount. And then there's the whole thing about we have staff available to do the entire city change out in a fairly short period of time versus trying to do it within budget or for, X number of years, because then you end up with different lights made from different years and different sequences, and you end up trying to stock equipment that may not even be available anymore. This way, it's all done in a short time.
Wastewater lift stations.
So those are some of the key factors, yeah. And then obviously we guarantee the energy savings because that's what we do. And we've been doing it with all the projects we've already identified for you.
Yeah, and just to note that, when the 2010 project, that was supposed to have a guaranteed savings of 32,000, but it really came up to 60,000. And then the payback period was just about 3.5 years, so worth the project at the time.
Absolutely, so that's what we do. We try to, overperform on all of our projects, and we use every single project as a case study, and then we get X number of awards for our projects. That's how we operate, because this is all we do. This is our business, so we do it right.
I think we do need to do this because, as you show, we kind of flatlined and now we're ready to do some more. We have opportunities with the street lighting and some of the other buildings. Just funding, was that planning dollars or what facility?
Yeah, Andy and I had a brief conversation, and hopefully, ultimately, this isn't
Paying
an
out
outlay
anything.
to begin with. Like John's slide alluded to, it's an exit fee. We had quite a bit of discussion about this back in 2010, what this fee was. Conceivably, it could be infrastructure planning dollars would be utilized. And basically, those are funds generated, against our bonding proceeds every year. There's a certain amount within our fee schedule that's for infrastructure planning, certain percentage of the bonding dollars.
Yeah, or even the facility dollars too. There's,
Could do that too.
at this cost, there's,
As you mentioned,
Options.
if we do the project, that's the idea.
We have a
is
project,
hopefully-
like John mentioned, it gets rolled into the project design effort on Amoresco's end. And I would think realistically, and we talked to utilities quite a bit about this, and when we were discussing LED and transition in particular, we couldn't scope this project hardly with city staff alone, or go out and hire a consultant to do it for most likely less than $35,000. So there's even, and I'm not saying we want this to occur, or we envision this occurring, that the exit fee was utilized in the end, there would still be benefit to the city from a knowledge basis standpoint in delivering a potential project.
That's where our facilities committee came from, basically was born of some of the information provided with the original performance contract information audit assessment. One thing I'd like to add a note as well is the 4 items that Don had identified. Those are just priority items that the city staff had identified, or these are some things that arise to the top of the list. That doesn't exclude everything else. There's lots of other things that can be evaluated as well as part of this assessment. So there's going to be other opportunities in there too that we might definitely want to take advantage of. So thought that was worth noting as well.
I really like the PV arrays on top of their racks.
Well, they need new roofs too, so if there's a time to do it.
What's your pleasure?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the Amoresco project development agreement gleefully.
And I'll second that gleefully because it's a great project. And you have a proven track record for us, so. Thank you.
Motion by John, second by Mary to approve Amoresco's project development agreement. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 18-788, ordinance suspending enforcement of Hutchinson City Ordinance 92.018 pertaining to hours of construction during the Second Avenue Southeast Bridge Replacement Project. Waive first reading, set second reading and adoption for July 10th, 2018.
Yes, yet another handout in front of you. We had a slight revision to this. And that it was simply referencing a previous project in the second paragraph, so we've.
Cutting and pasting. So.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, giving away all my secrets. Yeah, so the hours haven't changed, what was in the council packet. The contractor on the Second Avenue Bridge project has requested that we loosen up our hours, basically our noise ordinance, restrictive hours, and allow work from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on all days between now and August 24th, which is our completion date. They are going to have a tight schedule to achieve that date. We knew that going in. Obviously, we've had some less than favorable weather in the first 3 weeks or so of the project. We've had some high river flows from the very beginning. So I think this is a reasonable request from the contractor. Based on staff's conversations with him, he simply wants a little bit of comfort level starting his work at 6 a.m. Just simply warming up equipment and doing things of that nature. We're fairly confident he won't be driving pile right at 6 a.m. So it's, well, Gary might take issue with that even.
I'm up anyway, so it don't matter to me.
I can hear it from my house too.
Yeah, exactly.
I can
A
hear
lot
it
of
at
people
my
can,
house.
but
She's loud.
But yeah, he just wants a comfort level, just starting,
Yeah.
simple operations a little bit earlier instead of having to wait till 7 a.m. to start to warm things up and then starting his full operations, not till an hour, give or take later. This does include Sundays. It does include all the holidays in between now and the end of August. And he specifically requested that, to have the ability to work as needed and as weather permits.
Well, as a neighbor,
Everybody's up around our house and the neighbors, everybody goes to work pretty early. Only one would be Mr. Detail, but he's actually up too, so I don't think it's a problem. I know the water's plenty high for them they had to get underneath to get some bolts loose, and I talked to him and yeah, he kinda conveyed to me that he'd like to have these hours, so I agree with him, so we can have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
second.
Motion by Chad, second by Steve to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocation policy.
Mayor and council, need tonight for consideration is the policy regarding invocation. I know I've got a couple different copies in front of you. One is a red line with some changes from the original draft that was looked at our last meeting. I think some of those you even saw potentially at that time. I don't know if you'd like me to specifically highlight those are noted within your packet. A couple of things to touch on. I know this was brought up last time. Once again, this does not eliminate the invocation, simply it just gives direction to the council on how it's going to be implemented in the future. Secondly, most of the policy outlines that are laid out within the document, a lot of that wording is taken from Supreme Court rulings. I know I've highlighted those rulings within the policy. So I don't know if there's any specific questions. One or three minor changes that would be considered that's not on the red is, there's some language that we struck out which then affected the numbering. And so I made that in my clean copy, and that's, I think, section BD, it should refer to, or I'm sorry, 6D should refer to 6I, 6F should be referred to 6B, C, and D, and then 6I should refer to 6D. So those are just changing those numberings to affect the language that was taken out of the previous one.
I'll make a motion to correct, or to approve it with those noted corrections.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Steve to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. We have setting council workshop for July 10th, 2018 at 4 p.m. to discuss use of hospital money.
At our budget kickoff meeting, we had highlighted the hospital money that obviously we received with the lease payout, and there was a discussion, or there was some discussion about having a separate workshop to get into a little bit more details on discussion of that money. And so we're looking to have that at 4 p.m. on July 10th before our next regular scheduled meeting.
Make a motion to approve that workshop.
I'll second it. Motion by John, second by myself to set the workshop for July 10th, 2018 at 4 p.m. to discuss use of hospital money. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Since we are in the process of enjoying workshops before council meetings, we need to look to schedule another one. Prior to our second meeting in July, and that will be to review the audited financial report for 2017. That's at 4:30 on July 24th.
Make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve meeting, workshop for July 24th, 2018, 4:30 to review the audit financial report. Any other discussion? Chad, I know why you made this a motion, because this one you always, like, really enjoy.
I'm on the
don't
edge
you?
of my seat.
Yeah.
Wish I would have been a finance guy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have amendment to lease agreement with TNT Air LLC.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. And thank you so much for considering this and adding it to your agenda. I apologize for getting it in late. As you might remember, this time last year, you had approved renting some real estate out at the airport to TNT Air for them to build an airplane hangar out there. They now are in the process, or perhaps have completed the construction of their hangar, and they want to have some permanent financing supplied by the Small Business Administration. The lender that's providing them with that financing has asked that some changes be made to our existing lease with them that would better secure the financing they're giving TNT Air to construct the hangar. As I noted in my board action form to you, none of those changes materially affect our relationship with TNT Air or their obligations to the city. Just allows them some greater flexibility to get some future tenants in that hangar should TNT default on their obligations to the Small Business Administration. So I'd be asking you to approve it, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by John to approve.
I just had one question.
Yes.
Mark, with the existing lease allows us to periodically increase the rent, within limits, but that still doesn't change. That's not a modification if we increase.
Correct, yep. And that's an excellent point to bring up. Our agreement with TNT Air is for the real estate that the hangar is on, and our lease with them gives us the ability to change that rate. I believe it's every 2 years, or at least review the rate every 2 years. But no, our ability to do that is not affected by this amendment.
Okay. So, thanks.
Call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Minutes, reports from committees, boards, or commissions. We have Public Arts Commission minutes from May 10th, 2018. Hutchinson Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from May 15th, 2018. City of Hutchinson Financial Report and Investment Report for May 2018. Tallgrass Noxious Weeds Monthly Report for May 18th. For May 2018, sorry.
Which I noted that our house was clear.
Your house.
Mowed my lawns. Thank you.
Julie,
They're pretty picky. I must have just been barely over 8 inches with a dandelion.
No, we just instruct the staff to make sure that they highly inspect elected officials' yards this year. So.
Oh, okay, gotta go home and mow lawn. Yeah. John, you have anything else for us tonight? I don't know. All right, thank you. Kent?
Quickly, two things. Highway 15, Main Street, public open house, like I mentioned at the last meeting, this Thursday, 28th, 4:30 to 6:30 at the event center. There will be a brief presentation shortly after 4:30 at the beginning of the event. And then it'll be just more open house style from there on out. The city staff will have a table to talk about sewer and water utilities. MnDOT will obviously have a table, the consultant, and then the chamber will also be there with some of their resources that have been developed along the way here, and then also likewise the Economic Development Authority will have a table and information to share. So should be a good event, should be a lot of good information available, and looking forward to it. Century Avenue, quick update on that. I know the special meeting was alluded to earlier this evening. I'm not certain we're going to get everything through the federal aid office at this point. The contractors it's basically on the contractor. They have to provide the information to the federal aid office and get the approvals. So we've done our part. I've spoken to the contractors' representatives a couple of times over the last few days. So we're hoping they get that in and get a blessing, and I'm planning on letting you know noon Friday at the latest, either way. So.
We could still do Elks Park even if it didn't.
Well, I think at this point we'll continue as scheduled, because the other topic too is our workshop that we're having tomorrow with Hutch Utilities, so.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good to hear. So I think what we might do, since you have other items, is we'll just keep this potential award on your agenda for Monday. And if things aren't in order, come Monday 8 a.m., since you're meeting on other items anyways, we'll just pull it, and then we'll award as originally scheduled per our specifications at the July 10th meeting. But the contractor, he's looking forward to having an extra week, so I know he's doing everything he can to get things in order here. That's it.
And for that meeting, everybody else is gonna be in town, right? I'm gonna be gone, so we'll need to have a quorum
On the 10th?
on the special.
Second.
As long as John Olson isn't here, you got any count on the mosquitoes?
No, unfortunately not.
Mosquito man is gone.
I'm willing to take comments and observations, I guess.
They haven't been too bad in my yard.
Yeah. Actually, I've been out in the. Yeah, there you go. That's where they're all at.
They're all at
They're all
Melissa's
family
house.
still.
That's good.
I don't know. I haven't heard much. Yeah, honestly.
I haven't
People
heard.
have been noticing too much in
Oh.
town here, and they haven't been too bad at my place to the east here, 30 miles. So happy so far, and they don't spray. So.
All right, thanks. Mark?
I don't have anything else tonight.
All right, thanks. Steve?
Just thinking with Amoresco here, we've talked about possibly a new police department building, updates to the fire department or an addition and opportunities to incorporate energy efficiency in that. And Wold, I know they're probably pretty up on stuff, but.
Actually, our next council meeting, there will be a proposal in front of the council to consider phase 2, which is starting to look at more of design.
Okay.
Sites and costs, and so I think I've heard some conversations from couple council members that desire to lead plan, to look at more efficient buildings.
I was by the cemetery and I noticed 3 large trees are very brown. I don't know if you've noticed, and are they actually oak or? They're
Right along Oakland?
there's 2 kind of set back just on the north side, and then there's another big one south of that a little bit. Just between there's the gate by the chapel, and then might be the next gate to the east, then kind of that central area. But you look, it's really.
You haven't noticed, have you, John, over there?
No.
Yeah,
Just-
we'll take a look. Talk to Donovan, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll take a peek.
It's really a shame if that's oak wilt, because that really shows you what could do. That totally brown leaves and.
All right.
And then there's a pine tree to the south of the last tree. I said there's 3 of them. There's 2 kind of together on the north side, and then another one to the south of that a little bit. And then south of that, there's a pine tree that the top snapped off and is hung up in some other trees. So I want to look for that. We had a free pool night the other night. Did you actually get a number on?
I know, and that was when I was at the week
Okay,
conference,
yeah.
I never did
Yeah.
check into that.
Just was
so.
curious how it worked out. I was at a meeting down in the cities for another subject, but somebody knew I was from Hutchinson and wondered if, we might want to look at utilizing ranked choice balloting for our elections. And that's where all the candidates are on a ballot, say this election's good. We have to have a primary because there's more than 2 people running for a seat. Well, that wouldn't need to be done if we utilize ranked choice. Just in November, people would rank the 3 candidates, number 1, 2, and 3, for their choice, and through the process, the winner would be picked then. And the advantage, just like it is with the primary, is that the winner will have more than 50% of the vote. So unless there's a write-in, of course, that could change something. But with ranked choice, that would guarantee that. So I know the Charter Commission they're going to be looking at the utilities question, and I did reach out to the chair of the Charter Commission, and he thought if the council would like them to look at it, that providing that direction would be good. So there's actually a group that will come out and talk to people like the Charter Commission to help explain the process and the advantages and what it really means. So I'm sure they'd be willing to do that. But, so just wondering if that's, like be open to having the Charter Commission look at a little bit with that.
Well, that
Or
would
if there's
save a little bit of
questions.
money for the city for not having a primary. 'Cause
I think Minneapolis has it right now, don't they?
In Minneapolis, St. Paul's going to it. There's a couple other communities. So.
Discuss it.
Let the charter commission look at it.
Should we have them talk about four-year mayoral term? No.
All right.
Anything else, Steve?
No, that's it for now.
Thanks. Chad?
I don't have anything more.
You did it all at the beginning?
Yep.
That's good. Mary?
The only thing I have is where the new trail is over, across off the School Road Bridge, and they put in the trail and all the way to the school there. Are they ever gonna put the grass in the boulevards there? It's kind of weedy looking to me.
Yes. We are working with our contractor on that project to get that addressed. And unfortunately, we've missed the window to get the seed reestablished, with, basically you have a period in the spring. Now we get into the summer where it's not advantageous to plant seed due to the warmer temperatures. So we're hoping that they get it addressed basically early August is when those seeding dates open back up again. And it's a punch list item that's associated with that project. We have a retainage amount still in hand. We could utilize that, but at this point in time, the window with the late spring, that shrunk that front end, seeding dates, obviously, how late spring came, and unfortunately, they didn't address it. So we're gonna give them another opportunity this fall. We've communicated that as much as possible to residents, and yeah, we'll go from there. And if it doesn't get addressed in a timely manner this fall, we will be pursuing other avenues that are available to us.
All right, thank you.
That's the benefit of retainage. I state that because there was discussion of the legislature that basically take that right away from cities to hold retainage. So that's why we do that.
Thank you. That's it?
So is there a bunch of weeds and stuff that should be taken care of?
Yeah,
Can
well,
you
we've
at
been,
least address
well,
that,
John's
Ken?
been sending the contractor
Oh.
weed notices, so we're, no. We've been badgering the contractor, to mow, and they've been doing that on occasion. So, and I realize it's not the most sightly thing, albeit, we'll be fair as we can be at this point to the contractor. We don't want to force them to go restore it and seed it right now, and then the seed doesn't grow because it doesn't rain all of July, So, unfortunately, they have a little bit of an excuse with the late spring, the weather, and we'll give them another crack at it this fall here right away, and we'll go from there. There's retainage, we hold a warranty bond still with respect to the contract, so we have other avenues. They continue to be unresponsive.
Thanks, Ken. John?
League of Minnesota Cities Conference, Matt and I both attended. I think we saw each other for 15 minutes. I saw John for about 5 minutes. We got our picture snapped for Green Step Cities Award. Pretty good, informative conference as as usual, the league is pushing racial equity. That, a lot of it talked about that. Did one of the workshops was about downtown Fergus Falls and how they were developing their arts community and having some pop-up art stuff happen. That was pretty neat. I just took notes on everything in my sheet. Just again, one of the things they hit on about thinking ahead, not just 2 years at a time, invest in the future, look ahead 4 years in the time. At our workshop with the HRA, I talked about the affordable housing TIFs that are available that could be used theoretically to subsidize lumber, that part of the houses. The last one I went to was on welcoming communities, and it was put on by, anybody has followed the Dr. Aji Verje. He's a doctor that moved to Dawson, Minnesota. He went to Georgetown, did his residency at Duke and stuff, had this high-paying job at a hospital out there, and realized when he heard that the ratio of physicians to residents in rural community is like 18,000 to 1, he and his family moved to Dawson, Minnesota. And so now he's the head physician at the clinic out here, and he's a Muslim, so he's the only Muslim in a town of 1,900 people. So very, very informative talk. If you get a chance, you can see his presentations online. He does a presentation with a Lutheran minister from town, and he goes around the country. He's done about 25 presentations, so that was really a great presentation. And I don't know what, I'm not quite sure what Matt went to. I did a city walk with Mayor Cleese through downtown St. Cloud along the riverfront. Pretty amazing what their riverfront looks like. Their trail is getting extended from downtown and past the high school all the way out to the Wobegon Trail along 94. So from downtown St. Paul, you will have a path that's up to 170 miles long. So,
When's that getting completed?
the funding was there. The city was kicking in through some grant money, $8 million, but I think it's in the process this year of getting it done.
But it stopped at St. Joe's too, didn't it? And
There was a gap there. I don't know if it's there anymore.
Yeah, but I think they're filling in the entire gap, because I know we've ridden from St. Joseph all the way out to Osakis on the, yeah, I mean, I'd never met the mayor before, and I mean, there were 30 people, but very knowledgeable guy, really, really hit on the history of St. Cloud, the three little enclaves that formed when the city first became a city, and really nice walk. Sitting and listening. And then Matt was there, so I don't know what Matt did.
Anything else, John?
That's all I've got. Go Pheasants forever.
Yeah. Matt?
Obviously, as John noted, I was there too. I sat in on a session regarding collaboration and public engagement. Some good ideas, some of the public, real exciting, like public tax conformity laws and stuff like that with what's going on, how it impacts the cities. And I also went on to some downtown art development, especially with our Main Street project, and some of what some other cities are doing that a little bit out of the box. And so, yeah, it's a good conference, as usual. But for me, a couple of things, just a reminder, we have a joint meeting tomorrow at 3:45 here in the council chambers with utilities. Obviously, we've got that special meeting July 2nd at 8 in the morning. We'll have for that come this Friday. Just a reminder that offices are closed next Wednesday, July 4th. Packet deadline is going to be next Monday by the end of the day. So if we happen to, just with the holiday and trying to get everything out, so we can get that out on Tuesday before the 4th. And then just a reminder, if you're interested, they're taking our Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities annual conferences end of July down in Mankato.
And I think I mentioned before, I won't be at the HUC meeting. I'll be in Wilmer at that other meeting. So.
That's it for me.
Yep. Now, can you believe it? Now, I just fell off the train here. Chad, you can help me out. My pick for Matt. I talked to you about him for utilities, Matt.
Oh, runs Redline Manufacturing.
Right.
Matt, I can't think of his last name.
No, it just fell off the.
Cheney.
Cheney. There you go. Thank you, Meg. So, Matt Cheney, that runs Redline. He's a self-employed. Went up to him and asked him if he'd be interested in serving on the Utilities Commission. He met with Don Martinez, that's on the committee, and Bob Windorf, and talked to Jeremy Carter about it, and they all think that he would make a good commissioner, so if it's okay with the council, I'd like to put him on for,
The next agenda.
next agenda for,
You submit a form then? Can
Yes,
you
he
pass
did.
that out? and have
Yeah.
that sent out?
yeah. Yeah,
His
he's,
better half is Liz.
yeah,
Yep.
so that's,
This works with Swift.
yeah. So he's been a graduate of Hutch High School and went to Ridge Rock College, and I think he's been resident for 30-some years, so. So with that, that's all I have for tonight.
Manny.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Chad, second by John to adjourn. All in favor?